Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Today is June 9th, 2018. Just in quick news, just to give you some perspective of where we are today. Donald Trump met with Justin Trudeau of Canada and the G7 at the G7 meeting, and he just put this out. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada acted so meek and mild during our G7 meetings, only to give a news conference afterwards saying that U.S. tariffs were kind of insulting. He will not be pushed around. Trump says this is very dishonest and weak. Our tariffs are a response to his 270% tariff on dairy. So we did cover Justin Trudeau today in Moronica. Moronica is up, Smaulgld's Moronica, where we cover the foolish events of the week, and that is on BitChute and YouTube. Now, today we're going to be talking about gold and silver, right or wrong, good or bad. And that is in reaction to the live stream we had last night. Just some quick updates on Smaulgld. I will be getting a new microphone, a new headset, and a new chair. Hello, Tom. And that should help improve the quality of the broadcast. I also purchased another package for web hosting, another $1,000, excuse me, for 5 years. So I am stepping up the expenses on Smaulgld in order to give you a better listening experience. I didn't think it was worth the time when I had, well, not worth the time, but worth the money when I had a smaller audience. But now that there's about 700 subscribers on Smaulgld.com and almost 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, I thought it would be a good time to invest a little money. Hello, Mark. And also, Smaulgld is listener supported. You notice you don't have Google ads when you sign up. And when you watch the videos, you don't have to skip through ads. And also, you don't have to listen to interviews of paid guests that are CEOs of companies that go on a lot of the channels and basically are there to promote their penny stock companies. We don't have any of that on Smaulgld either. There's no agenda. Basically to bring you my take on the economy, gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies. You'll notice I don't pump gold. I don't pump silver. I don't pump Bitcoin. I don't pump Litecoin. I like all four, but I try to give a realistic, excuse me, objective analysis of what's going on with those assets as well as what's going on with the economy. So let's take a look now at some of the comments that we had last night on the live stream. The topic was, is owning hard assets a good idea? And a lot of people in the gold and silver community not only think it's a good idea, they think it's the only thing that you should hold. Everything else is either, quote, a paper Ponzi, it is some type of banker scheme, there's something wrong with anything that you can't hold in your hand. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. Gold is money, period. And basically, they've locked themselves into the mentality that only hard assets are worth something. And we went through some of the, not because, and again, people think I'm against gold and silver, not because I'm against gold and silver, but there are times to own gold and silver in larger amounts, and there's times to own it in lesser amounts. But some people have it in their heads stuck that only gold, and even this only silver, is really where you want to put your money. Now, I'm not here as a financial advisor to tell you where to put your money. I could care less what you do. Not because I don't want you to do well. It's just that I have no interest in what you do. And there are issues with some of the things that people insist on YouTube about gold and silver. and also insist about whatever they happen to be pumping or touting. So let's take a look at some of the comments. Yesterday, just for a brief overview, the fact that with the problem with owning hard assets and owning them only is we discussed the limitation that they can't go anywhere with you. They're not portable. Hello, Gus the Broken from the Netherlands, up late at night engraving, I suppose. Welcome. The issue with holding hard assets and only holding hard assets is they can't go with you. They sit in your vault or they sit in your house or wherever you have them stored, and your wealth can't be used. It can be stored, but it can't be spent. Now, that's a good thing, and there's good reasons to hold hard assets. They do require insurance. They do require finding a storage place. Real estate's even worse. You have to pay tax on the real estate. So holding a hard asset does come with responsibilities and expenses. Now, let's take a look at some of the comments that we had in response to this. Now, the Smaulgld subscribers aren't, generally, they understand where I'm coming from, but there are some people that, because they think that the Smaulgld channel is a gold and silver channel, that it's going to be a gold or silver pumping channel, and they do get somewhat upset if anything is said about them that isn't 100% positive. And also there are some people that are 100% against cryptocurrencies. And I'm not a big fan of them, but I'm also not against them either. Let's take a look at the first comment here. Mike Redlick says, all countries have to do to criminalize the use of cryptos, and they go to zero. Okay, well, that's true with any asset on the planet. In fact, the United States government can decide that they don't want you to have a certain asset. In fact, they can do that with silver. If silver is so valuable, and silver is the most essential element, which we've heard people say, on Earth, and our lives cannot exist without silver. Well, if that's true, why would the government want people to allow people to waste silver to print images, anti-government images, on those rounds that a particular silver pumper makes? Because if silver is so valuable, well, you're wasting it by putting it on these medallions and selling them at a premium. Also, the thing about it can go to zero, the government can basically, if you allow it, and I see people in the gold and silver community cheering on. They want them to shut down Bitcoin because somehow that's, I don't know, that's going to help gold and silver. All they're doing is cheering on their own demise. The only reason that gold or silver or cryptocurrencies would ever be in the crosshairs of a government would be because they pose a threat. And right now, it seems, because when the prices of cryptocurrencies went skyrocketing, that posed a threat because people were moving money into those assets. They're not threatened by gold and silver right now. They're not worried about collecting taxes on gold and silver because there's no taxes to collect because there's no gains. But the idea that somehow the government is your pal in helping to shut down cryptocurrency and is going to help you with your gold is foolish. Similarly, you see the same thing with China. China is going to crush the dollar. China is going to do this. China is going to back the yuan. China is going to do something. And somehow China is your gold buddy, and China is going to help you by whatever they're going to do, whatever totalitarian edict they're going to execute. They are going to help you with your gold purchase. Whoever it is who's buying gold at the moment is your gold buddy with a lot of the gold pumpers. Turkey's buying gold. All of a sudden, Turkey's your gold buddy. Turkey's not your gold buddy. Iran is going to buy gold because they're going to evade U.S. sanctions and they're going to end dollar hegemony. So now Iran is your gold buddy. Don't think so. Now, the thing about cryptocurrencies, yes, the government can decide they're against them, and then people can try to go around it, just like they do in India when they put import duties on gold. People will try to, if they think an asset is worth something, they'll try to acquire it, even if the government says you can't acquire it. So they really can't. The only asset that a government can decide is worth nothing is their own currency. They could say, you know what, the dollar, the ones you have in your pocket, if they have a date on them before 2008, nothing. Not worth anything. They can tell you that. That's what fiat means. They tell you it has value, They tell you it doesn't have value. But they really can't do that with gold. They can tell you you can't have it. We're going to confiscate it. By confiscating it, they would be admitting it has value. So even if they decide to ban, outlaw any of these assets like gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, they still have value, and the government really can't tell you they don't as long as people want to have them. They can reduce their value and their attractiveness to hold, because if you get caught with them, you may have a problem. But the only asset they really can decide is worth nothing is their own currencies. Now, let's see, the next comment was here. Mark would tell you, great analysis and analogy. We are living in a digital currency, more or less, no matter what the hard asset crowd will tell you. Well, that's true, and that was pretty much the point of last night's discussion, is it really, and I like to make this point all the time, it doesn't matter what my point of view is, what your point of view is. It's basically what other people's point of view is. And if other people are accepting the value of digital assets, it doesn't matter how many YouTubes you listen to telling you silver's the only way to go, gold's the only way to go. Unless the rest of the world believes that, you're just listening to an echo chamber. So right now in the world, people don't believe, oh, they'll see, you'll see, they always return to gold. Well, maybe they won't. And if they don't, you're sitting there holding on to gold or silver, which I believe will be always worth something and will act as insurance. But the sales pitch that they give you, that it's going to skyrocket and it's going to be worth more, not if people don't think of gold and silver in that fashion. And I do think this is a function of people over 40. They're conditioned to think that. They live in a world where they believe that physical assets hold value. But go and try to sell your stamp collection. No one wants it. Baseball cards, no one wants those either. Coin collections, no one wants those. And it's not just because younger people don't have the money. If they did have the money, they don't want them. So you can insist that gold is money, period. So if no one wants it, you could say it has intrinsic value, but what value does it have unless someone wants it? So you are just like when you buy real estate. The value of your real estate is dependent upon the quality of your neighbors. If your neighbors are all crackheads and they destroy their property and they allow rats to flourish, your property, no matter how great you think it is going to be diminished by the lack of quality of your neighbors. Similarly, if the world doesn't believe in the asset you believe in, they don't buy into silver is the most useful element on earth, and without it our lives would be worthless, and we all must hail silver and worship silver. Well, if the rest of the world doesn't believe that, you can insist you're right and all your friends are right and the people on your YouTube channel are right. It's not going to make a stitch of difference. So that leads me over to Bitcoin. There are people who actually believe in it. You could say it's a Ponzi scheme, it's a fraud. Doesn't matter. If they don't think it's a Ponzi scheme and a fraud, they don't care what you think. They think it's valuable, and they're going to make it valuable, and they're going to buy it, and they're going to drive the price up, no matter what you say. So Mark is correct. No matter what any crowd does, it doesn't even have to be the hard asset crowd. Any crowd has a bias, and any crowd will always think that they're right. And that leads me to this issue that this gold or silver, people, this binary, everything has to be, it's either gold or silver, it's right or wrong, it's up or down. And really, I think there's very few things in life that are that binary. There is right and wrong, and again, even there's shades of gray. But when people decide, and this is where I want to get some comments, that assets have these pseudo-religious qualities, like only silver, only gold, only Bitcoin, Bitcoin maximalist, only Bitcoin, everything else is nothing. I think that's an issue. I don't know why people extend maybe it's just being a simpleton. I don't know. The binary concept that everything has to be one or the other, and they push that towards their investments seems very odd. Okay, let's see what other comments we have here. Here, Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. Don't fall for it. So I ask, I hadn't heard that before. Please explain how Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are Ponzi schemes. Well, that's because they have no intrinsic value. And without new buyers, bag holders, the thing dies. That is not the definition of a Ponzi scheme. If no one bought milk anymore, then there would be no more milk production and it would die. That wouldn't make it ex post facto a Ponzi scheme. It just means that people are not buying milk anymore. So the lack of intrinsic value doesn't mean that something is a Ponzi scheme. It also doesn't mean that something doesn't have value. As we talked about last night, the value in Bitcoin, whether you see it or not, or whether I see it or not, it doesn't matter, is that people believe that they can use it to buy stuff, which there are other people that believe that and will accept it to buy stuff, and the fact that they can move it around with ease. That's the value that they assign to it. You can say it's not worth $8,000 of Bitcoin. I can agree with that. You could say it's not worth 10 cents. Doesn't matter. But that doesn't mean that people can't assign value to it. A fraud is something where someone says, this company is worth X amount of money because it can do X, Y, and Z. And if it can't do X, Y, and Z, or it doesn't have the assets, well, that's a fraud. There is no fraud in Bitcoin because Bitcoin just says, doesn't say anything. It is what it is, and people want to assign value to it for whatever those properties are, and there's no fraud in that. You may think it's not worth your time, it's not worth your money, it's not worth $8,000, it's not worth 2 cents. But again, what you think about it is irrelevant, and that's what I think people don't understand. They insist that because they don't like it, because they see no value, that the rest of the world has to see it their way. And you can yell and scream, Bitcoin's a fraud, Bitcoin's not worth anything. Or you can do the reverse. You can jump up and down and say it's worth zillions of dollars, it's going to change the world. None of that's going to matter. Only what will matter is the collective wisdom of whatever market is in it. So if you're not buying Bitcoin, you're not in the market, and you hate it, the market's already accepted the fact that you're not in that market. You're not going to change it. By not continuing not to be involved in it, that's fine. You're just not going to add to the value. You're not going to detract from it either from your comments here. What I wrote is Coca-Cola has little or no intrinsic value. If people stop buying it tomorrow, would that mean for 100 years Coke was a Ponzi scheme and the company stock a fraud? No. Coke always says it's just Coke is life, whatever they say. I think it's Coke adds life where there isn't any. I think that's the expression. Hzilla. Tangibles like cars and homes are not portable and may be tax targets, so you just can't win. Yes, now I was talking about the downside of cars, homes, gold, and silver, but there are upsides. They may not be portable, but they're still valuable, and you can live in a house. You don't need to be flying around. Your house probably wouldn't gain more value if you can put it on a truck and drive it away. It gains value because of where it is. But it does make you question, what do you really own? The issue with assets are, do you really own them? Especially if you end up having to pay tax on your assets, it really becomes a nuisance. Tom Manley says, dollars are worth 0.399 cents in real value, so almost there what is gold worth. I don't know what you mean by... Well, I think what you're getting at there is I think it's a bit of a tired argument that the dollar has lost 97% of its value since the Federal Reserve in 1913. Yes and no, because what you can buy with those dollars is a lot different. There's definitely inflation on certain items like eggs and milk and so on. But also, it's not really 3% less. Your dollar isn't worth 3% because the things you can buy today weren't even around in 1913. The fact that you can buy computers, which have gone down over the last 20 years, and their power has increased. Your standard of living is also higher. You live an extra 20, 30 years than you did in 1913. So you really can't look at it on an apples-to-apples basis. That is a very common argument, and there's some truth in it. There's definitely truth in it, but it's not like the dollar is worth 3 cents, and it used to be everybody was rich before 1913 because there wasn't a Federal Reserve. Augusta Broker selling $18K of physical silver next week to a colleague, Smithy, as they need some material to work with. Now, there's an issue where there's demand for silver because there's demand, for those types of products where people engrave coins on them, and there's industrial demand for silver. I'm not saying there's no demand for physical assets. I'm just saying that there is demand for digital assets as well, far more than there is in some instances than physical assets. Better buying now than later for them, especially for me, and I'll give them a good deal. And win-win, says Tom. All right, let me get back to the comments. Message retracted. Tom, what did you say there? All right. 8zilla says, indeed, I wonder it may boil down to what you can hide and freely retrieve. If you think about it, in the end, we'd be no better off than the dog who buries his proverbial bone, in that we might only be able to bury some precious metals or a small cache of preps. Even if you think you can trade, exchange cryptos, if the government can monitor your ISP, in theory, could it not trace the source and destination of such transactions when you go on the internet? Sure could. And even more so if you exchange fiat for cryptos at the bank's controlled choke points when you buy or sell cryptos. All fair points. Now, I write, how wealthy are you if your entire wealth preservation strategy is spent on only assets that can avoid detection? And I think being able to spend freely is part of being wealthy. Yes, you live in a society where there are taxes. There are people trying to know what you're doing at all times. I don't think that's a good thing. But then again, if you try to put everything off the grid and you try to hide everything and stuff everything in your basement, you really can't enjoy your wealth. Because the minute you take it out, someone's going to track it, someone's going to tax it. So it's a catch-22. You may think that you have your wealth, but if it's stored and you can't, for example, if you travel somewhere and you've got it hidden in your basement 40 feet down, okay, you're not really rich, because until you can actually use that value, it's just sitting there. And your mindset may be, I'm not going to use it, because when I use it, they're going to find out about it. Okay, so you spend your whole life being wealthy in your basement, but you really aren't wealthy at all. Now, Tyler Durden, no, it's not the Tyler Durden, but I think he made a very astute point here. He says, to answer your question, hold both. One for guaranteed preservation of value. I like this. He would mean the gold and silver and real estate. And the other is speculative best, but usable online and while traveling. Given governments have yet to control cryptos, there is no winner yet. And then he's saying when Facebook coin or Fed coin comes out, the field will really change and adoption will finally occur. So that's my point is basically the title of this live stream is basically there is no good or bad, right or wrong. And I cringe when I hear this worship of an asset to the exclusion of all others, like it's a religion. It's like you've left the silver church, you've left the gold church, you left the Bitcoin church, the Litecoin cult. I think assets don't deserve that type of loyalty. And I believe the reason they have that type of loyalty is because a lot of people have heard from people who pump those assets over and over and over again to the point where you can repeat like a mantra the things that these people say about their assets, and you start listening to the same thing, you start to believe it, and then you've taken sides. And I don't think you would naturally have those points of view if you looked at things a little more rational. I used to just listen to them and be, I think it's a form of brainwashing, and it's also a form of getting you to subscribe and getting you to buy their whatever they're selling, whether it's gold, silver, special silver rounds with anti-government slogans on them, whatever. All right, what other comments do we have here? Comic Commando says, you pose good questions and ideas. However, if you don't have some hard assets, then really what do you have? I agree. I'm not saying you shouldn't have hard assets. So you should have hard assets. And I'm not saying PMs are perfect, he says. But what else can you do in a world that values things that aren't real to hold value over time and continue to lose purchasing power? Well, it's kind of a rhetorical question, but it also has the answer within the question. What else can you do in a world that values things that aren't real? Well, you could also acquire those things that aren't real because they've been valued even though they're not real. I'm going to repeat that. In a world that values things that aren't real, well, that's the world in which we live in, and that's what Mark Battaglia was saying. If you live in a digital world and the world values digital things, then it behooves you, at least partially, to go along with that. To sit there and obstinately say, no, not for me, not for me, it's not real, gold is money, period, and I'm just going to sit here and with my stack. Well, you're not going to get the benefit of what everybody else thinks is value. Now, you may feel you've retained your integrity. That's another one here. You've retained your integrity. You're not going to buy into the values of everybody else. Well, that's to your economic detriment then. If people think that digital assets are worth a lot and they can be exchanged for goods and services that you want, even though you don't think they're worth anything, I think it's against your economic self-interest to deny that other people think that these things are worth something. Now, to Comic Commando's point, though, if they don't have any value, then he's right. Then you should have hard assets to protect, and this is my point of view, the hard assets protect against the digital failure. So if there is a failure in, let's say the grand illusion goes away. Tom is right. Tom Manley says, quote, gold is like a paid-up insurance policy. It's nice to have when you need it. Canadian metals. Micro Minch is the only way to save yourself. Okay, that's bull. Would like the odd one that CD sells, but as a Canadian, I would pay way too much. Well, the micro mintage those coins are very interesting because, and there's an assumption there that somebody's going to want those coins. And the idea is if you only make 20 of them, and there's like 3 people that want them, and one person has all 20, then the other 2 are going to buy them. Not a big market, but it's a very efficient market because, as he points out, if you go on eBay, there are people selling them and people buying them at the higher prices. But that's more for the rarity than for the silver, because if there's a situation where people really want silver, they're not going to, and because it's short for whatever reason, they're not going to want to pay the premium on a coin just because it's rare. But it is a very, it's a good study in markets where you actually, the thing won't go below a certain price because it has an ounce of silver, but it also, it may not ever, it may continue to rise, or it may just end up being worth the value of the silver. Horse sense is something that stops horses betting on men, right? Chrono Trigger fan, Mark Battaglia, guitar and pickup are more value than your editing software because they are tangible. If you can't strum it, you don't own it. Well, it's good to see Chrono Trigger fan here. Let me get back to the comments. Let's see what else we have. What did I respond to Comic Conda other than what I just said now? Yeah, digital assets get a bad rap as if they have no value. The world today is valued digitally, whether you like that or not. That's a point Mark Battaglia makes. Physical assets are insurance against digital failure, but perhaps should not be the primary source of wealth storage. See, people think that if all they have to do is just keep on stacking, well, they're stacking against what the world is telling you is valuable. And they keep saying, well, the lower it goes, the more I could stack. Okay, but that's making the assumption that other people are going to see the value in your stack a year from now, 2 years from now. And one of the things that the people that pump their own assets say, well, you'll see, you know, it's inevitable. It's not sustainable. Well, your life isn't sustainable, and it's inevitable you're going to die. You really have to take into account how long are you prepared to wait till the rest of the world comes around to the way you and your YouTube buddies think. And maybe it never will. And in some respects, I've already seen that people believe in stuff that I don't believe in. I don't really think, in my mind, that the cryptocurrencies are that valuable. But it's not up to me to make that determination. And I also don't have the ego to think, since I know eventually the world's going to come around to the way I see it because I'm smarter. Thoughts on gold-backed blockchain, Tom asks. Now, some people think that that's redundant because the concept of a blockchain, trustless, cryptocurrency means that you don't have to worry that somebody has the gold. You don't have to worry about anything because it's all self-validating. It's a trustless system in the Bitcoin. What blockchain does for gold is it gives the gold owner some security that the third party or the blockchain is less likely to be, what's the word? Not trustworthy. So for example, right now, if you buy gold and you send it to Brinks and Brinks holds on to it, there's nothing saying that Brinks could either go bankrupt or just say, management's just decided to call it a day, shut the vaults down, and take off with your gold. Nothing you can do about it. Blockchain somewhat lets you know that that might be happening, but I don't know. The biggest advantage to blockchain or just even digitizing gold is that it brings the portability of gold on par with digital dollars, digital euros, and Bitcoin, Litecoin, and other cryptocurrencies, meaning you can now spend your gold on with the same ease without having to lug it around. Then, because no matter how much gold is worth, you still have to carry it, and you still have to worry about it being stolen. So the advantage of cryptocurrencies and digital assets, credit cards, debit cards, wire transfers, and so on, is that you don't have to carry it around. So to that extent, I don't think it's going to revolutionize gold or create demand for gold. I think it's just going to help people. What do you think about real estate and having rentals? Well, rentals and real estate, again, if you're going to hold an asset, there's a difference between holding a house as an asset and wanting it to go up, and holding a rental and not necessarily holding it for the price appreciation of the rental, but getting the cash flow from the rental. So those are good, and they're only good to the extent that the price you pay, the mortgage you pay on them, you manage to get back in the terms of rent, and it produces a positive rate of cash flow. Certainly nothing wrong with that. It's just it's all case by case, and whether you can make the numbers work when you buy a rental property. Flight 19, there's a special secret project that can transport physical items by space-time, much like Star Trek, transporter, more like modified time machine. Yeah, well, they actually can take, what is that? They transport people from one to the other. Now, Johnny Ascar, we all know that this is another myth here. We all know countries are stacking and hoarding gold and silver. Personally, that's all I need to know. Now, that's something that they've heard on the channels. The pumpers put that out there. Now, I happen to know, because I look at what the countries are doing, countries are not stacking and hoarding gold. You're looking at a number with cherry-picked stats. When they say central banks are buying gold, that's a general statement. The specifics of central banks buying gold, basically Russia's buying about 60-65% of the gold that central banks are buying. What Russia does is Russia's now the second largest gold producer in the world. And Russia has a weak currency, the ruble. So Russia decides it's very prudent, in order for them to build up their reserves, to transfer a good portion of their rubles into gold. So they buy their domestic supply. That's where the bulk of central bank gold buying is. It's in Russia. Now, Russia doesn't have as much of a need for dollars to buy goods from the United States because Russia doesn't need to buy U.S. oil. Russia has very little trade, but they still hold $98 billion in U.S. treasuries. All the gold that they've stacked, world-leading gold hoard that Russia has, is worth $83 billion. Now, other countries that are buying gold hand over fist because they know it's coming, nonsense. Turkey is buying gold. Why? Turkey has a dog crap currency, and they need to add something of value, and they've only started doing that recently. They're not buying on the grand scale. And the other country that's buying gold is Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is in a similar situation to Russia. Other than that, the major countries of the world are not adding gold to their reserves. Not any of the European countries. Oh, but they're repatriating it. Well, that's not the same as adding gold. When Germany repatriates, Netherlands, Belgium, they didn't add an ounce of gold to the reserves. The People's Bank of China has stopped adding gold to reserves. Oh, that's because they're lying. That's another myth. No, there is gold going into China, but not on the People's Bank of China's balance sheet. I like when people try to say that China's lying about their gold, but at the same time, they want you to accept that the world is going to accept the yuan as an international currency. Why would any central bank or anyone want to own a currency issued by a country that is known as being a liar? I don't think China's being a liar. I think China is basically saying, here's what we have, we, as the central bank of China, on our balance sheet. That doesn't mean that there isn't other gold trade in the country. So, for example, the Reserve Bank of India only has 557 tons of gold on their balance sheet. Does that mean India's lying? No. There's 22,000 tons or more of gold in India. That's another gold pumper myth that China's lying and that China's going to roll their gold out into a stadium and it's going to be game over. Nonsense. Central banks have agreements amongst themselves really not to buy or sell gold. They are trying to de-emphasize gold in a big way, and there's no big move of central banks buying gold, and therefore they know it's coming and you should buy gold too. What about the Texas New Depository? The Texas New Depository. Well, I did some reading on that today. It finally opened, and what I didn't learn yet, and I still want to know, is whether the average person can go in there, put their gold in there, and actually go in and physically take it out. Or I don't know what the withdraw, the mechanisms are, but it's a good thing. I know they want to take the gold they hold in the Fed back to Texas, so they don't have to hold it there. So fiat has always gone to zero. That's another one you hear over. Gold never got. Gold is money, period. You know, horses were transportation, period, for 5,000 years. And then that changed. I'm not saying that gold's not going to be valued. I'm not saying horses aren't valuable today, but gold is not money today. Gold is not used as a currency. Gold is not as portable as other money, so it fails compared to even digital fiat. Gold is a good asset, but it's not as good for transferring for use as a currency, just as horses are not as good today now as cars are for transportation. So this fiat has always gone to zero. That is true. All fiat currencies are issued by governments, which eventually all governments go to zero. But here's the question for you. One fiat dies, another fiat lives. Gold is always going to do well against dying fiat currencies. I'll put some charts up. I put them up on Twitter all the time. If you look at the price of gold versus the Turkish lira, the Ukrainian hryvnia, the Argentine peso, yes, gold goes up in value, and it's good. And that's the reason you have it. Isn't in the case of a currency failure. But this idea that you're going to be last man standing, remember, without a functioning financial system and currency, even your gold isn't going to buy you anything because there will be no goods and services. You can have all the gold you want or Bitcoin you want in Argentina. You can think, I preserve my purchasing power. Good luck. There's nothing. Congratulations. There's nothing to buy in Argentina. So the idea that you're hoping for a currency collapse and you're going to be rich because you're holding gold, that's really very little consolation. If you think there's going to be a currency collapse, having gold and silver should not be the top of your priorities. Good preps, relationships, ammunition, those are much more valuable than just having a stack of gold. In fact, having gold and silver in a total collapse is probably a bad idea because now you're a target. Yes, you may have the ability to fight off, but is that what you're looking forward to? Is taking shifts and the people in your household with a shotgun out the window to protect your stack, even though there's nothing you can buy with it? Yeah, this time is different. Gold is money. It's not a... No, you see, the idea that gold is money, period. No, gold, part of what makes gold money is its use as a currency. Gold is not used as a currency right now. There's no absolute gold is money, period. No, gold has to be used. It can be money. It can be used as a currency. It can be used as a medium exchange, but it's not. It has the qualities of money, but it's not very good at the qualities of portability and exchangeability. So gold is more likely an asset right now. But of course, once you've got it in your craw that gold is money, period, and you've heard it 1,000 times on a different bunch of different YouTube channels, then gold is money, period, and you can't go on from there. Do you think improvements in the economy is factor elaborate statistics? It's probably a combination of the two, Poppy stuff. The governments, again, they want you to believe what they want you to believe. And it's the same with fiat currencies. They're based on confidence, and so is the economy. So gold is not a covenant, but as a convenience of currency, is a trap for those empowered to trick us to empower them. Well, one of the issues I have with a gold standard is, why would anyone want a gold standard? That basically says you don't get to hold the gold, and the government fixes the price of gold. The government fixes the price of gold, which means you have no appreciation. You can't, quote, protect yourself. If you held gold somehow, surreptitiously, when gold was banned from U.S. ownership from 1934 to the end of 1974, it was $35 an ounce the whole time. You didn't protect yourself. Government basically controlled the price of gold. So I don't think that's a good reason. You don't want a gold standard. Well, maybe you might, because if they do, let's say, which is not going to happen, but if they wanted to do a gold standard, which no government would ever want to do, is it would restrict them from printing. But let's say they did, and they take the gold price up to $10,000. Well, that's it. You get your windfall, you get your $10,000, and that's it. Now what are you going to do? Now you're at the whim of the government, because the government's telling you the price of gold is $10,000, and that's it. Silver Slave, you're right. Gold doesn't need to be a currency. It's a store of wealth. That's fine. And I don't disagree, and I think it is the store of wealth. It's the best store of wealth, and it will survive other. But that doesn't mean it's set to skyrocket and that it is money. It is a valuable asset, no ifs, ands, or buts. But when people get it stuck in their heads that somehow it has mythical qualities and that the world is going to turn to gold, why would they? See, you would turn to gold. I might decide that gold would be the way to go. But the world doesn't think that way. All those central bankers, all the populists, look what happened in 2008. They weren't thinking, oh, okay, we just collapsed and we had this massive Ponzi scheme, this big real estate crisis. Let's all do a gold standard. How come it didn't come up back then? Because that's not how they think. People don't value gold in that way. The banking and financial system has made it such that it is basically price, it's range bound in a price. The Italian car Fiat, they named the currency after a car. LOL. No, actually I think it's called Fabbrica Industria Automobile di Torino, which means the automobile company of Torino, Fiat. It does not mean Fiat. All roads lead to Rome and build a Milan. Okay. Rothschilds and co-rigged the economy. Oops, lots of typos. You even spelled oops wrong, Gus. They're broken. They will always be able... Well, see, there you go, Silver Slave. Here's what I've been thinking lately. If they're always able to put some type of manipulative scheme on, you generally are rewarded for following their schemes. They told you to buy real estate in 2009. They told you to buy stocks in 2009. They told you not to buy gold. They've been telling you not to buy gold, telling you not to buy silver. Silver has gone nowhere in 10 years. It's still $16, $17 an ounce. All other nonsense. I mean... Tesla is worth billions of dollars. Now, why would that be worth billions of dollars? I see no value in a company that loses money, kills its own customers by being an unsafe product, and yet you'd have been rewarded if you had purchased silver. They won't turn to gold if Rothschilds are in control. I don't know if it has anything to do with Rothschild. I think it has to do with general banking in general. Bankers don't want to be restrained. Politicians don't want to be restrained by tying anything to any type of asset unless they have to, and there's no reason they have to. If they're in power, they don't have to do anything. If somehow Rothschilds lose power, gold should be used a lot. Why? Why would you think gold would be used a lot more? The average person in the United States doesn't even own any. If you look at the U.S. Mint numbers, the U.S. Mint numbers are horrendous. They sold like 2,000 American gold eagles in April. It's not like the American populace or the populace around the world is clamoring for gold and the Rothschilds are stopping them. No, they don't even think about it. They don't even know about it. I like to point to Mark. I mean, yes, granted, he's making these videos and he's out there and he's trying to find morons, but they don't know. He's trying to give away a $50 American gold eagle for $50 because it has a face value. No one wants it. He offers a silver bar, 10-ounce bar, a candy bar, and they take the candy bar. So it has nothing to do with Rothschilds in control. It has to do with They wouldn't be able to control it if people actually wanted gold and silver and people were on. Think about it this way. There are more people right now that are trading Bitcoin and using Bitcoin in commerce. There's not that many, and Litecoin. How many people do you know that actually go to the store or buy something somehow, some way, using gold and silver? They don't. They don't even want to. In fact, the people who have gold and silver, they don't want to spend it. They want to hoard it from the mythical day from when the Rothschilds no longer control the price. That doesn't make any sense. Rothschilds and co-own the currency, own the media. Okay, well, forget Rothschilds. That is definitely true. There is a concept right now that the media definitely, along with the governments, do create a system of control via what they say. And there you go. They're brainwashing the shit out of everyone, so that they don't know the... Well, then if they have done that, Silver, if they have done that, that is the reality in which you live in. And it's not going to change because you're holding on to your gold and silver. Kennedy is going to send a Litecoin tip. I love that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do appreciate... I was looking at Patreon the other day. I think I have 12 very generous patrons. I make $48 a month. But I was looking at some of the patrons, like of the people that donate to me, and then some of the other channels, they have thousands of patrons. Some people are making $4,000, $5,000 a month. I make $48 a month. It doesn't pay for that. It's not even going to pay for the new microphone and the new chair I bought. But thank you very much. But tell you, they couldn't stop Trump, Brexit, Italian election, but they were in control. None of that would have happened. Well, that's the other thing. The idea that there's this monolithic entity that controls the world. I don't think so. I think there's many entities that vie for control of the world, and sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. But Silver Slave is right. There is no doubt that that there are powers that do control what people think, and they have. They have definitely done a number on gold and silver as monetary assets, as money. They do not like them. They do see them as threats. And so that's why they have the paper markets. That's why they have COMEX. That's why they basically themselves don't use it. The idea that the central banks are hoarding it, they're not. Russia is only hoarding it because they produce it and it makes sense to have gold. The Werewolves of London. Hey, I know that song. Yeah, Werewolves of London. Ooh, Brexit is not happening. Well, that's true, Westfact. You know, Italy wanted to have a finance minister, a Eurosceptic finance minister, and they wouldn't let him have it. Brexit wants to leave, but they're going to get a bad Brexit deal where they actually won't have left at all. Silver says, crypto is a leak for the currency, so it doesn't enter silver and rise the price of silver. That's the broker I feel. Poppy stuff. Do you think the U.S. is looking for a new war by the rhetoric? I once did a blog post, and I listed all the wars the United States has been in since, and it went out, this was before the Fed. It started basically since the nation, it says the video output is low. If you guys are hearing this, YouTube is not receiving in a video. Well, that's all right. There's nothing to see anyway, as long as you can hear me. Looking for a new war by the rhetoric. They always have to have a war, but what they really need is they always have to have someone buying the industrial military complex hardware. So that's why they need to expend some of the rockets, some of the missiles, and so on from time to time. War, in some respects, is bad for business. But I don't know if they're necessarily looking for a new war. They have to be very careful with wars they get out of control. Yeah, Silver Slave. What would happen if 5% of the population took their money out of the bank and bought silver? I have done a blog post on exactly that. It only took, I think, you can do it. Let me get the link for you while we're here. I did a, I think it was called What If 1% of the U.S. workforce bought silver. I did a chart, and basically it would eat up the entire, half of the silver supply. What if 1% of, I'm going to send you that, I'll put that link in the description. You can check it out. The problem with it is, while it's nice speculation, it would be a big deal. It's not going to happen. Yeah, what would happen if? Exactly. What would happen if? Take a look. I actually answer that question. It would eat up a lot of that silver. But here's why it won't happen. First of all, people don't want it. There's not enough people that want it. But second of all, any of you who've worked at a company that offers a 401k plan, most 401k plans, the administrators won't even allow you to buy a precious metal paper product. They won't even allow you to buy a 401k plan that has mining shares in it or GLD. So, no, I don't think it will happen. Look, the big collapses have happened. We had a big collapse in 2008, silver slave, and there was no move to gold and silver. Absolutely none. The move was towards the printing press, debt creation. Believe me, when people lose everything, they start to wake up. Yeah, they wake up, and what do? They ask government to help them. They ask government to do something. You know, the average person, if they lost everything in Venezuela, they're not asking Maduro, por favor, oro y platos, por favor. They're not saying that. They're saying, help us, give us food, give us money, give us something. They're not saying, we want a gold standard. They're not asking for that. That's where this idea that they're going to wake up. Yeah, Mark would tell you, no one has any, yeah, only 5%, bro. Yeah, but 5% is a large number of people, and there isn't that number of people that are that interested in it. Okay, so Silver Slave says, I know most people can't think. Well, then you take the world the way you find it. If you believe that people are stupid, and I'm not disagreeing with you, and that most people don't understand stuff, why would you expect them to all of a sudden gain some type of mythical insight where all of a sudden they're going to rush to gold? That is a gold and silver salesperson pitch. They're going to rush to gold. They've always rushed to gold. No one's rushing anywhere except in Russia, former Soviet Union. 5% is a large number. Sorry for the rant. I think we should wrap this up in a minute, but let me just get to the rest of the questions here, or responses that we had from the other night. I think I pulled them out. Let's just see if I can get this here back, and then we'll... All right. Waking up to silver, no. Debunking. Here in the Netherlands, why is all the interesting things and should always happen in my nighttime when I should be sleeping? Yeah, I'm going to have some live streams I'd like to do on a daily basis at this time, but for Debunking and others that are in Europe and elsewhere, I'm going to try to do a couple of weeks during the day so that people in the Netherlands don't have to stay up. He's waking up to silver. He's trying to fall asleep to silver right now. What is different this time is in 2008, there was a subprime mortgage test. Now that is correct. There will be a sovereign bond debt crisis. But you know what they do there? The easy thing for them to do is, remember, all central banks hold each other's sovereign debt. They hold them on their balance sheets as assets, which doesn't make any sense. They also hold them knowing that they're never going to get their money back, but they assume and they pretend that they do. So that's the big myth. The easiest thing for them to do is to write off each other's debt and then just create new debt. This idea that they're going to somehow figure out, oh, we're going to have gold and silver, I don't think so. No one is waking up. How did we wake up to it? Incessant watching of YouTube channels. That's it. And how did you wake up to it? Yeah, well, PSers telling lies. Yes, I do think there is an element of people that are, quote, woke, but I also think they have half the story. I think a lot of it is a pump job, and a lot of it isn't going to happen. And, you know, you believe what you want to believe. And unfortunately, I don't believe it. I believe that gold and silver are valuable assets, but I don't believe in the story of game over, game changer, and the pump of the month that comes out. So I was just born this way, asleep like the rest. People can learn new tricks. You're absolutely right. People can learn new tricks. But why would they learn your trick? Why would they learn silver pumper's trick, gold pumper's trick? It's not in the DNA. It isn't there. It would have to be re-education. They will want to know you can wake them up. Me or who can wake them up? The people who control the media aren't going to be pushing that. They're going to be pushing that some banker's got some scheme. If the bankers control the financial system, they control the politicians, and they control the media, why would they be pushing gold and silver? It doesn't make any sense. Been stacking since 1971. And now, Tom has got a point. If you have been just dutifully stacking, not looking to get rich, not looking for game over and end games and all the other nonsense you hear, you can preserve, and you're probably better off preserving your savings. I'm not talking about your speculation to go skyrocketing. If you've been buying gold dutifully and silver since 1971, you have accumulated wealth. That's different than saying gold is money, period, and gold's going to skyrocket, and there's going to be a gold-backed yuan, and there's going to be... Those are just fantasy stories. Venezuela survived by living by animal shelter for fresh meat. Yeah. So I've actually heard that they're mining Bitcoin and Litecoin because electricity is really cheap there. You know, it's so... They're actually rushing to Bitcoin and rushing to Litecoin. And that's a pump that you'll hear from the crypto crowd. That in a crisis, everyone's going to go there. And then the counter to that is, what if the crisis is one where they shut off the electricity? Okay, well, now you don't have the value in the cryptocurrency. Gustavo, oh, well, thanks. But if you post the video, I'll always see it, but do have to sleep. Okay, good night, Gustavo. It's good to have you. You should go to bed. I will do one during the day. Appreciate you coming by. Mark Battaglia, Silver Slave, you bought a false narrative. Time for the second red pill. Yeah, I'm going to put a link here. Well, I won't find it. Maybe, Mark, you can post it. The link to the video that I did with you, where you introduced your concept of the second red pill. You have the first red pill, where you start to believe all this stuff, and it all makes a lot of sense. Debt creation, Ponzi schemes, Rothschilds, all that. And then you start to realize, well, some of this doesn't all work out. And I think Mark did a good job of bringing that up. So maybe if you can put it there. You got to get your weight up. Okay. Haha. No, I've been better, actually. All right. So tomorrow, I'm going to wrap it up here in an hour. It's been a full hour. I was only planning on going an hour. But tomorrow I want to do, the title will be, is Bitcoin a fraud or a Ponzi scheme? We touched on that briefly. Hard, unencumbered assets, as Chrono Trigger fan, are best used to escape a rotting nation as opposed to navigate some, as opposed to some apocalyptic landscape. What's funny is the YouTube channels, they promote this entire collapse scenario. Credits freeze up. There's nothing to be bought. Gold can't be had at any price. What is that? What good does that do you? I don't understand. Credit freezes up. There's no goods and services. Then what becomes value is not gold. What becomes value are goods and services, not gold. Keystone Stack, what is your personal preference for saving for your future? Do you have a certain percentage of personal? Well, what I've realized is that it depends on your total circumstance. So savings as savings, it seems over time gold is a safe bet for savings. Silver has not been a safe place for savings. It's probably the worst place they've been in the last 10 years. It went up really quickly, it went right back down. Unfortunately, even if you believe in hard assets, you have to believe, not because you want to believe, but because the rest of the world does, that there is value in the S&P. There is value in the Dow Jones. There's even value in those cryptocurrencies. The issue is which ones, and what percentage would you want to have in those assets. But it's true that going all in on anything, putting all your money in crypto, all your money in the stock market, all your money in gold, all your money in silver, it's not a smart thing. Although, I would say, if you had to go all in on something, and you had a 50-year time period, maybe gold is historically, but unless they pull a trick where, let's say, they revalue gold next year, and then it stays there for 50 years. Who knows? You think we should buy an asset at record high, stock, property, buy low, sell high? No. I don't know when you should buy. You should always try to buy as low as you can and sell as high as you can. But remember, there were people that were banging the drum to tell you not to buy stocks, not to buy real estate for the last 10 years. And they were wrong. And they were telling you how to buy silver. And they were wrong. So maybe now they might turn out to be right because no asset stays down for 10 years. Maybe silver will start to head higher. I don't know. They reckon a time will come when crypto mining popular cryptos will consume such a significant amount, says Rod Panhart, that it won't be worth it. It certainly won't be eco-friendly. Well, that's true. Now, the difference between gold mining and crypto mining is, let's say gold mining gets really expensive, and gold mining gets like real. It has a bad economic, environmental rap because it's got mercury, and it's not safe. Gold mining. The difference is you can still have gold still exists. You don't need to verify a transaction through a miner. So they can stop gold production tomorrow, and there'll be enough gold out there. The price will probably go up a bit, but the amount of gold that they say is out there is about 200,000 tons. They only add about 1-2% of the overall gold mining production each year through gold mining. So it wouldn't be a catastrophe if gold mining stopped, but it would be if crypto mining stopped, I would think, because the system doesn't work anymore unless you have active miners. And that is why Bitcoin is not digital gold. Gold is what it is. It doesn't do anything, and it just is. It doesn't require inputs. It doesn't require miners. It doesn't require a blockchain. It doesn't require anything. It doesn't require electricity. Once the gold's pulled out of the ground, melted down, cast into coins, that's it. You need no further inputs. Gus the bro, I'm finding out Gus is telling us that he's Iron Man, that he's up all night. I think, learn to barter, yep. Learn many skills. That's right, Tom. Skills are more important than silver. I believe the U.S. economy, says Keystone Attackers, will be worth more in 20, 30 years than it is now. So, yeah, so if you believe that, now you have to have faith somewhat in human ingenuity and human innovation. The reason you have gold and silver is because you think they're going to mess it up. But the thing about companies is they always find real companies, not Tesla, that are subsidized and don't make any money, but companies that have a profit motive, over time, there's going to be companies that do well and actually will outperform. There are times when the Dow does outperform gold because difference between gold doesn't default, but it also doesn't make profits. So gold is a rock, and companies are organic entities. They die, yes. They go bankrupt, but they also can produce spectacular gains. So, yes, stocks can be a good thing if you've got good companies in them. Artists often have their best moments at night. Gus, I thought you went to sleep. I always have my best ideas at night. Well, it's not night for you anymore. It's morning. So you do need to go to sleep. Do you have a website? I'd love to see your work. I want to see this engraving stuff. Silver is well. Tom Manley, Chrono Trigger Man. That's an increasingly difficult proposition in a world where the most lucrative positions require intense speculation. Catch 22. Well, that's a good point there, too. We're very close to a top now. Yeah, I thought that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, Silver Slave. One of the things about stocks that you have to keep in mind, unlike real estate has a price target. You can't go to a certain price in real estate because there's only a certain number of people who can afford a $2 million home. It's subject to their salary, and it's subject to their income and the amount that they can put down. So you can never get a neighborhood where every house is going to be across the country $3-4 million. Stocks are a different story. There is no limit on what a price of a stock can be bid up to. Doesn't matter. You can have a PE ratio of 20, you can go to 30, you can go to 40. If people want to spend the money on them, they can go that high. And when you have central banks buying stocks, you have an added buyer, and they buy them at no cost because they print the money to buy stocks, you could see higher stock prices. Now, you're right, Silver says. Silver sold, much safer to buy physical silver until the market bottoms out. Well, you could have said that last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years, 10 years ago. And you'd still be telling yourself you did the right thing. I'm not saying I have a crystal ball. I've been through it. I know that it hasn't gone higher. And you think, this is it. The bottom is in. It's $28 silver. Oh, it's in. It's 25. No, the bottom's in at 20. The bottom's in at 19. The bottom's in at 18. And the Dow is topped out. You never know. I do want a small business, and I expect to lose if I haven't sold it before the next collapse. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. I do appreciate you joining me this evening, and come back tomorrow at around 8 o'clock. Tomorrow during the day, I'll have the Smaulgld, in case you missed the top gold, silver, and crypto stories for the weekend. And that is generally a 35 to 45 minute report. I try to go through the major events of the week. And I will have out the Shanghai Gold Exchange numbers during the week. And I'll try to get some of the mint numbers up in the charts as well. Philip Kennedy, tip this man. He's working for me. Thank you very much. Yes, tips are appreciated. Patrons are appreciated. And also go and check out the Philip site over at Kennedy Financial. He does live streams. He's got a great site over there. Also, he has the new show with Jason over at Wall Street for Main Street. Check that out. I think it's called Welcome to Dystopia. I think they did their first, the one I heard, I think it was the first show the other day. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Poppy. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Silver Slave. Yes, I do like Litecoin, but I don't think that it's worth pumping and saying that the world is going to change because of Litecoin and you should put all your money into Litecoin. Good night, everyone.